The viewpoints expressed on Night Fright are not necessarily those of the host, the staff, the sponsors, or the affiliate stations. Tonight's program may contain graphic themes or images. Viewer discretion is advised.
There is a time for question. There is a time for answers. There is a time to challenge. There is a time to speculate. There is a time for change. There is a time for truth. The time is now. Welcome to Night Fright, your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy. And now your host, Brent Holland.
Showtime. Welcome to the show. I'm Brent Holland, and welcome one and all to Night Fright. Have we got a great show for you tonight, folks? Stick around. First of all, though, I want to mention, go get the coffee, go get the tea, get a beverage of your choice going, get on your comfy couch, get on your comfy chair, get the comforter up, because we're going to go to places we haven't traveled to for quite some time. John Moore is our guest tonight. Now, this is going to give you a very detailed idea of where we're going to go tonight. Here's his title, folks. Are you ready for this? He's the director of demonic investigation for Haunted North America Network. He is also runs an organization called Ottawa Paranormal Research and Investigation. He's been investigating since 1995 various paranormal activities in and around his life. How many people do you know that grew up inside a family funeral home? John did, and that's where he had his very first paranormal experience. John, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me, Brent. Glad to be here.
It's good to see you, my friend. Okay, growing up in a family-run funeral home? What the heck is that about? What happened there, buddy?
Well, my great-grandfather actually started the funeral home, built it from the ground up, and ran it for years till my grandfather and my father took over. We lost the funeral home years ago, but that's another story. But during my time there, basically, at night, my dad would be cleaning and I'd be hanging out. You know, I was about 12, maybe a little younger than that at the time, but I'd be hanging out. My first experience in the funeral home was when I was 8 years old. And basically at that time, I was standing in the foyer while my dad was back in the chapel just cleaning up, I can't remember what, it might have been some flower petals or something from the wake that night. And basically, while I was waiting, I saw a gentleman at the bottom of the stairs. And down in that area is where basically we'd have like a little makeshift morgue. My dad and my grandfather would build the pine caskets, and some of our showroom for the ornamental caskets was there. And there was just this man standing there who smiled at me and then just walked to the side. And my dad came out and he was wondering who I had been talking to, because I had said hi when I first saw this man. You know, I'm 8 years old, don't know any better, right? So my father, he went down to see who was there because there wasn't supposed to be anyone there. We were all locked up for the night. He came up saying there was nobody there. Turns out, in the years since then, many other people have seen him, including other members of the family and people that knew my great-grandfather who built the funeral home, and he's the one that they've seen. Now, I had no idea who he was because I hadn't met him until, I had never met him. He died when I was about 3 months old.
Wow. Now, you got to tell me, can you tell me how old was he and how was he dressed?
Well, his age, I'd probably say in about his 60s, somewhere in that range. And he was just basically wearing a regular suit with a hat, kind of like, you know, pretty much like an undertaker would wear back in those days. I guess in the building where it was that's what he would have worn whenever he went to work and all. So.
Oh, so you think he was an undertaker then?
Oh, he was an undertaker. Like my great grandfather is the one that I saw, and he was the one who built the funeral home.
Wow.
I saw his picture in a family photo album a few years later, and I pointed and said, "That's the guy in the basement at the funeral home." And that's when they told me that was my great grandfather.
Son of a gun. So that's pretty wild. And what did your
Hmm.
dad say when you told him that, and your grandfather?
They had been around that funeral home just probably much longer than I was, as you can imagine. So it honestly didn't surprise them. Things happened in there all the time. Like there
Like
was
what?
all
Can you
kinds of
can you give us some examples?
things would move. There were noises, a lot of like you get a lot of tapping sounds. If you were there at night alone, you'd hear footsteps all through the place. Frequently, things would be picked up and put in some other location. Just various things like that.
You just sound so nonchalant about it all. What was it like growing up in it? You know, you've got death around you 24/7. Did you sleep in the same building as the coffins, as where the caskets and the bodies were laid out?
No, we weren't living in the actual funeral home itself.
I see.
We were actually just sharing the parking lot. We were right beside it. So, but yeah, it was like I'd look out my bedroom window and there it was. So it wasn't like we were far.
Wow.
But no, yeah, but no, it's just I grew up in it, like I said, and so did everybody else in my family. So to us, it was just regular, everyday thing. It's just part of life.
What did the kids at school say when you told them stories like this?
Most of them would just laugh, or some of them would say, they talk about their imaginary friend, things like that.
Wow, that's pretty incredible stuff. And was that the one incident in your life that decided to make you thrust yourself into your work as a paranormal investigator and director of demonic investigation for Haunted North America?
It definitely pushed me in the direction of the paranormal.
Okay.
That wasn't the biggest one that got me involved in
What was
all
the
of this.
biggest one got you involved?
The biggest one was after my uncle died. We were living in another house, and basically that house was known to be haunted. It was a small town I grew up in, maybe 2,000 people on a good day, and in that house, basically almost 3,000 had seen this ghost. There are stories of one individual who was actually attacked by it. But yep, oh yes, he was attacked. He was just the old man would sit on the end of his bed and like whack at his feet and things in the night. For a 10-year-old boy, it was kind of frightening. But
No
he was
kidding.
well, his mother and father were one was native, one was non-native, and the old man he was from an older time, so he had some prejudices towards that type of thing. So I guess that's why he didn't take to him. Because I never had anything like that happen to me. Although I did see him a few times. The worst is when I woke up one night, I was on the couch and I saw him in the window. And at that point, I was about 15 years old. And I basically just stood up and said, "Hey, who the heck are you? What are you doing in my house?" And he just turned, looked at me, and just vanished before my eyes. And at that point, that was when I just basically said, "Okay, there's been enough strange things happening to me over the years. It's time to get more involved into this."
So that's what you did. And what was your first step in getting involved?
Well, basically, I started reading up on it online. I read papers by Lloyd Orbach, Ed and Lorraine Warren, few of the other notable parapsychologists and things like that from back in the 80s, 90s. So that was how I basically got started into it. And from there, I would take some of what I picked up on from that. I bought a couple of video recorders and cameras, and the voice recorders, things like that. And I'd be out at night in the cemetery, sometimes doing sessions. I mean, everybody starts there eventually when you're young, right?
I'm
So
laughing because, John, you say again so nonchalant. I was just out in the cemetery hanging around looking for ghosts. We're speaking with John Moore, folks. You're listening to Night Fright. I'm your host, www.nightfrightshow.com. You'll be able to pick up all of John's links there, including his Ottawa Paranormal Research and Investigation information, as well as I said before, he's Director of Demonic Investigation for Haunted North America Network. So 1995 till now,
mhm.
the industry's exploded. And what has changed since 1995 until now?
So much. There's so many new technologies out that people are using now. Like back when I first started, the biggest thing was, you had to buy like your camera, then you take it, you get it developed, you had the rolls of film, things like that. Now everything's digital, so there's so many differences there. The video, the audio recorder is the same. Video recorders are much more easier to handle instead of having the big. Remember the big bulky units from the 80s, 90s? They were just massive. You didn't really have too many because they were expensive, and nobody had anything night vision, obviously. So the night vision, the full spectrum, all these things that we're seeing now, we didn't have access to back then.
Yeah. Okay. How is the attitude towards paranormal researching? How has that changed?
You see it a lot more. People are open to it now as opposed to what it was before. Before, people would kind of look at you like, oh, you're one of those crazy people and things like that. But nowadays, people look at it like, oh, wow, you do that like on TV. So people are generally a little more accepting for the most part.
Okay. What kind of background do you have as a paranormal researcher? Did you go to any schools besides the School of Hard Knocks? You grew up in Canada?
Yeah, I grew up in Canada. I've never actually done any formal schooling or anything
Okay.
like that. But as I said, I've studied a lot on books and things like that, and I've spoken with a lot of people who are well known. Like I do from time to time, I do converse with Lloyd Orbach on various topics just to get his input and things like that. Like I know I have a course coming up. I'm going to be teaching here in Ottawa later in January. January 18th, I believe, is the exact date. And I was speaking with Mr. Orbach, and he's given me a few things that I'll be bringing into that course that people can actually see too. So.
You want to talk a little bit more about that course?
Well, at the moment, we're still putting it together. It's going to be me and another individual. She runs a number of things through there, mostly occult things, reading runes, astrology, things like that. But this will be a ghost hunting 101. And a lot of what we're going to do is we're going to go in, we're going to explain people the theories behind what we do. We're going to teach them, what are we doing with all these meters and gadgets we have? What are we looking for when we're taking pictures? Why do we use different types of camera settings and things like that? And I'll also be showing them, some of the things to watch for that are easy ways to debunk what you're seeing.
Okay, let's take up your latest paranormal research adventure. What happened recently?
Oh, the most recent one, I'm pretty sure you're probably talking about the Witch's Hollow.
Yep,
Yeah.
which is hollow. Let's go there. Let's tell the folks
the
all about that.
The Witch's Hollow is actually quite interesting. It's a property outside of Ottawa. I can say that much. I can't really give away the exact location for obvious reasons. But it's in the middle of Lanark County, and there's no contamination anywhere. There's actually no cell reception, nothing. So there's no one nearby. It's inside of an area where there's a lot of wolves and things. We actually heard them howling that night, and apparently it was very weird to the owners because they've never heard anything like it. We all thought it was very beautiful. But while we were there, we finished setting up our cameras, and we were all outside getting ready to do our protection. And we heard a very loud, audible moan. Like it was actually so loud that everybody in the group actually turned and stared to the direction where it came from, which was in between two of my investigators. And the two of them looked at each other thinking the other had done it. So it was actually, that was pretty good. And that was, like I said, when we had just set up the equipment. Nothing was rolling yet, obviously, right? Always happens that way. And we got that. Later in the night, we had a few things. Our sensitives went into some rooms and they had to leave. They were absolutely scared. There's a room in there called the altar room. It was set up with pagan altars and all, because the building was used at one point for pagan rituals and things. So there was a lot of things that happened like that, and they know there was one person in there who was extremely bad, extremely evil, and he was doing a lot of dark rituals and things in this place. So they believe he was still there. So while we were there, a few of our people picked up on his energy and what he was possibly doing in those areas. But again, my sensitives, when they went in, had no knowledge of this. The only one who did was me.
Okay.
So to see them confirm that was actually quite crazy.
Okay.
But then there's more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just going to ask you, can we talk about what you knew going in and what they didn't know, and how they both matched up together? And what do you do for protection, by the way?
Before we go in, as a group, we always get together. No matter what you're doing, what's your belief, you always want everybody together. It's just a show of solidarity. So sensitives will come together. They'll do their grounding, centering, the energy work that comes with being a sensitive or a psychic or an energy worker. They'll do that, and they'll do that with us and protect all of us with it. And at the same time, I'll generally, if Bishop Angelicus is with us, he's the exorcist we work with. If he's with us, he'll actually read the prayer of St. Michael, or I will, and that's just a way to show solidarity, show that, you know what, we are one, we are a team, you're not going to come between us, and we're strong, there's strength in numbers. So that's generally what we do when we're doing our protections before a case. So.
Okay, and what did you find out in your research about this character that you came across, if you will, and what did the paranormal sensitives find out, and how did you guys come together?
Well, what we have on the place is from the owner, who's she's my occult specialist. Okay. She does know a lot about these things, and she basically gave us the history of it. Some of it you can check out. They're the previous owners for 35 years. They were the leaders or members. I'm not 100% on that, of the largest covenstead in Canada. So yes, they were witches. So they're in the back was the place where there's a major pagan festival that to this day still goes on, but it's moved. It's grown so large that it no longer can be done at this location, but this is where it started. So there's that. In the back, they also have a place called the Barn Temple. There were rituals done there. There were rituals done on other areas of the property. So there was all kinds of things like that we found out. Again, some of this, like I said, is things that she came up with herself and let me know about, because she's the one who's into these things, and in the remote area like that, it's almost impossible to get any records to corroborate most of this.
What were some of the things she came up with?
One of the things that she got while talking to the owners was, like I said, that she also spoke about a man who was in there. He was the dark one, the dark sorcerer, whatever name they have for what he was doing. I'm not sure on that, because nobody really knew exactly what his occult following was, if you get my drift there. And basically he did, the way it was explained to me was that, for lack of any better idea, it's something that even my specialist had never heard of, called a psychic baby. Nobody seems to know exactly what that is, but it's something that he was saying is what happened, and it was something very dark and evil. And in that room where that was supposedly done, everyone, even the non-sensitives like myself, walked in, and we felt just something like we shouldn't be in that room. So he was definitely, we believe he was there. The sensitive, when he walked in, he just turned around and went back and go, there's a very angry man in there. He's not nice. We need to back up and stay back from him. So
when you say sensitive, can you describe exactly what a sensitive is, as opposed to, because you just said you're not a sensitive? What are the differences between the two of you guys?
I have no psychic. Most people would think of them as psychics.
Oh,
So
I see.
I don't use the term psychic because a psychic would be someone who sees the future. And
Okay.
psychic, like, we all know, psychics generally are frauds. Or in the realm of what I do, when there's people that have can see the future like that accurately, that's generally a sign we look for. So
I see.
that's for me, that's not a good thing. So most of our people, they're sensitives. They're sensitive to the energies around them. They can often see or hear the spirits, things like that.
Really?
Yep,
Wow. So they have kind of a connection with the other side already as they walk through the door? Would that be
yep,
accurate? Okay.
yep,
Now,
exactly. Like you
okay.
see some of them on TV, like Michelle Belanger, Derek Acora, people like that on TV. They call them psychics there, but that's not the actual definition of a psychic.
Okay. And you as a non-psychic, you have to use your, I guess, instruments, your electronic instruments when you do a research or something along those lines? Is that the difference?
Yep, I'm mostly using the instruments and I'm picking up on those. Although, to some degree, everybody has sensitivities. It's just I
Hmm.
can't hear and see them, where the other
I
people
see.
that I work with, they do. So I'll go into a room and every once in a while, like I've been doing this long enough. It's like I say this, like I'm not a fan of the TV shows. So I find they're all for entertainment. But some of the things that they've come up with, one of them that Zach Baggins of Ghost Adventures says the most is the best investigative tool he has is his body. And that's absolutely true. Because when you're in a room, even if you're not sensitive, if you've been doing this long enough, you just get that feeling like something's not right, like something's there. Everybody has that ability and everybody can feel those things. It's just some people are more in tune to it than others. So,
When you run across something evil, something dark, how do you
mhm.
differentiate between what would be demonic and just a ghost that's just out of sorts, if you will, that's just causing havoc?
Well, generally with demonic cases, there's certain patterns that they follow, certain things that we look for with them that you won't see in other cases. Some of the biggest ones are we all know that there's those cold spots that appear in some cases, right? With a demonic entity, you're more likely to see hot spots. Like you may see cold spots, but there will be hot spots in places. When you walk into certain rooms, instead of feeling like watched and unwelcome, you'll actually feel like a heavy, heavy oppression on the back, like something is trying to push you down, doesn't want you there. Those are some of the smaller things we look for. There's also the bigger ones, like people levitating, things like that. Those are generally ones that you watch for. But again,
Have
those
you
are
seen that, John?
extreme.
Have you seen somebody levitate?
I have seen it once.
Oh, can you tell us about that?
All I can say on I don't like to speak too much on those demonic cases because the people that are involved there are at their worst and they're basically at the mercy of these things and I don't
Okay.
like to put them in that place. But what we did see is we did see her just off the ground slightly and it was almost and you could see a red mark on the neck. It looked like something was choking the person. It was absolutely insane. Like it was a bit of an eye opener for all of us at that point.
Wow, that is
But
scary.
again, those types of cases, they're so rare that it's once in a lifetime you'll come across it. And to anyone that thinks that they'd love to see it, no, you don't. I can
No,
assure you.
no, no. I'm not convinced I'd actually like to even see a ghost. Um, you're based in the Ottawa area. How far out of a radius do you go on cases?
I go wherever I'm able, honestly.
Okay.
I'm from New Brunswick, so last summer we actually, my wife and I took a drive out and we did a few cases out in New Brunswick.
Hmm.
And we're hoping to get back out and do a few more this spring, maybe in the fall. We're not 100% yet when I can get the time off is all, but we'll go there. If the case is warranted and it's necessary, we'll travel to Toronto up to 4 hours, 5 hours,
Wow.
wherever we need to go, as long as it's warranted and it's worth us going. I mean, if somebody calls and says, I can't find my cat, or I think I've got a ghost because I'm hearing knocking in my walls,
Mhm.
but they're in Niagara Falls, it's like 8 hours away. I'm obviously not gonna make that kind of a trip. But I have a network of people all over through Haunted North America and through all the years that I've been doing this that I know people in pretty well everywhere. Like
Eh,
recently I just helped a guy with a case that was being done in England. So
can you tell us a little bit about Haunted North America? How many members are on your team that come from Haunted North America? I know it's quite a big Facebook group.
It's a very large Facebook group, and on the team, we don't actually have an investigative team per se with them. It's more of a global network of all paranormal investigators. But we basically stick mostly to to North America, obviously, because it's haunted North America. But we're trying to bring all the people that are interested in this together into one place so that everyone can just be like one stop. There you go. If you want to find out about a paranormal TV show, it's there. If you want talk to somebody experienced, it's there. If you want to know where to buy and sell used equipment or new equipment, we'll have that on there. It's just going to be all kinds of things like that.
Okay. And, I'm just wondering, do you reach out to them? Like, let's say somebody calls you from Calgary, which is way too far for you to travel to. Would you
Yeah.
reach out to a team members or group members that are in Calgary to go and take a look at whatever information came through across your desk?
Yes, absolutely. I actually dealt with one in Edmonton not too long ago.
Wow.
What happens when people contact me from out in other areas like that? Generally, I get those contacts through the Haunted North America Facebook page.
Okay.
And generally, what happens from there is I'll talk to the person, I'll get their story from them, just
Got
to
you.
find out. There's certain things like I'll be asking them certain questions, like just to make sure this isn't someone who's out just wanting attention, wanting their 5 minutes of fame, something like that, right? So I'll
Right.
be asking them some questions, trying to find out the background, what's going on, getting an idea of just formulating what I think it might be, and then I'll reach out to a team in that area that I believe is capable of taking care of the situation. And all through that, the team will contact the person. They'll get back to me, and I'll just keep an eye on the whole
Hmm.
thing as it goes, just to make sure. So,
What are the goals of the team?
of Haunted North America,
Well, of your team, your investigation, people that are into this that you contact, what are the goals? Are the goals to document and let people know what's going on in their homes? Is the goal to uh, clear the surroundings, if you will, so people aren't haunted and bothered by the ghosts? Does it differ
generally
from
the
case to case?
it does a little bit. If you're doing like a known location like Waverly Hills or something like that, right? You're going and you're trying to document and catch things. You're investigating what's going on, trying to test new techniques and things like that, correct?
Okay.
And
What's Waverly Hills?
it's a very famous haunted location in the U.S. It was at one point it was a mental hospital.
I see.
Uh, yeah, like there's all kinds of those. There's Waverly Hills, Rolling Hills. There's all kinds of different places like that that you see them on all the TV shows. Like Ghost Hunters have done them, Ghost Adventures, all Paranormal State, all those shows like that. They go to these locations. So if you're going to a location like that, you're obviously not there trying to remove anything. You're there because you want to try and catch something. You want to see,
I see.
document it. You want to see if you can catch proof. But when we get a private residence call,
Yeah.
it's a little different. What you're doing then is somebody's reaching out to you because there's something wrong and you're trying to get in there and you're trying to help them. At the same time as you're trying to help them, you are trying to catch what's going on and see. Like you want to verify what they're seeing. You want to try and capture it. And then you want to see if you can figure out what's causing it and what you can do to help them so that they feel more comfortable in their house.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you charge for these services, by the way, John?
No, I don't charge for anything I do.
Really? So if
Nope.
somebody's got a problem, they can just contact you through Facebook and off you go. Is that the idea?
Yep. They can contact me through Facebook, through my website, wherever, and I'll do what I can to help them.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Folks, we're speaking with John Moore tonight. He's Director of Demonic Investigation for Haunted North America Network. And he's also running Ottawa Paranormal Research and Investigation, www.nightfrightshow.com. Click on tonight's guest's contact information, and you'll be able to contact John if you have anything you would like to ask him, or perhaps you have a problem going on in your own home right now. John, you get something that flies across your desk. I'm
Hmm.
just going to go out on a limb here and say, okay, it's somebody in a secluded area living in the bush, and they've got these weird things happening. Plates are flying around, things are moving by themselves. What I'd like you to do is walk us through your process, how you would take on a case like that and prove to the person that's called you what exactly is going on? What would be your first step?
Well, the first step is I would make contact with the person and I would speak to them on the phone. I have a questionnaire I go through, and we would go through that and just get the answers to the questions so we can see and rule out, is this something like, is it a poltergeist activity? Is this somebody that's just overreacting because there's an earthquake or something like that at the time? You know, we're in Canada. We got the Great Canadian Shield below us. There's a lot of seismic activity at times.
Yeah.
Often we won't even feel it, but it is enough that some things can fall off walls and things. So I would just try to verify that and see exactly, like, is it actually flying across the room or is it just falling off a shelf? You know, I would go through things like that to find out. And if they told me, you know, no, it's literally like flying 10 feet across the wall and smashing on the opposite side of the room, then we'd be looking a little bit more like, okay, into the individual. Like, is there any sort of stress patterns? Is there any big life events that have happened? Things like that, trying to rule out possible poltergeist activity.
What's a poltergeist?
Poltergeist is actually, it's just pent up energy. Parapsychologists would call it PK, which is photo.
It's okay.
I can't
Photokinetic or something along those lines?
Yeah, photokinetic. I
Photokinesis.
believe something along those lines. The actual word escapes me at the moment, but they call it PK. And what it is that energy is in all of us. And that's what, when we get something we can't handle, our subconscious may act out without us knowing. And that's basically what a poltergeist is. It's something that comes out, we've manifested it, and it basically is destructive force. And things will fly. You'll see people throwing things. People have been attacked and choked and things like that at times.
Mhm.
So,
what are some of the questions on your questionnaire, John?
some of them basically I'd be asking them, has anyone had any medical issues that you know about? Are there any pets in the location? What do you know about the location? Has anyone in your family died recently, or do you know anyone who has died recently? I'd be asking that. I'd be asking, has anyone in your family had issues with drug abuse, anything like that? There's a lot of questions like that we ask them. Some of them seem a little bit personal, but they're all there for a reason.
Okay, let's pick one. And okay, you'd mentioned has somebody died recently.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that be important?
Because a lot of times we've all heard the stories about someone, they've gotten a phone call from their grandmother who's on her deathbed, and she talks, and then after they hang up with her, but maybe after 5-10 minutes, whatever, they get a call from the hospital saying this person died an hour beforehand. You know, that's a one-time event that happens, and often family members will appear like that. Sometimes they'll be like through the phone. I've heard times where somebody would see, they woke up and saw their uncle or their grandfather, or like my great grandfather. Now, you'll see them sometimes. That's why did somebody recently die? So we asked that to see, is this a one-time occurrence? Maybe they just dropped in to say goodbye.
Does that happen quite a bit, John?
It happens more often than you think.
Yeah.
The problem is, though, we can't document those because they're a one-time event.
Oh, I see. So it's
often
just
they're a one-time. So
okay.
yeah, it's very like you're either there at that moment, which you would have no reason to be there investigating.
But I'm thinking chances
happened.
are if somebody's contacted you, this is a recurring theme that's going on in their house. And it may even be escalating.
Sometimes, yeah. A lot of the cases I see, they do tend to be escalation. Because I have other teams that know me and they know what I do. So when they have a case that gets really bad, they actually refer it to me because they know we deal in those extreme activity cases more than, say, someone who does it just for fun on the side, right?
Right. Now, at what point do you start doing research on the area, the house, the ground around it? Like you had mentioned, the recent one that you just did, that you found out that there was the largest covenant of witches that used to use the back as a ceremonial ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, as soon as I have the address, I'll give it to my research team, and they'll go out and they'll start digging. So they'll just start digging. They'll see what they can find. They'll see what they can get out of it. No, not physically digging, although there are some that I think if I told them to, they probably would.
They probably
If they
would.
thought it would
How many
help.
guys on your team, by the way?
My team, we're probably, I think right now we're about 14 all total.
Wow.
That's my investigators, my reviewers, my researchers.
Right.
That's all of my clergy, my specialists, that's everybody.
Okay, and everybody's a volunteer for this? Nobody gets any bucks?
Everybody's a volunteer, absolutely.
So you obviously have a day gig. What do you do for your day gig?
I'm an automotive mechanic.
Okay, so you do have a source of income then. Okay, because I imagine this gets expensive, right? I mean, you have to buy your gear yourself. There's gas money, there's feeding people, to say nothing of your time.
Well, thankfully, all of my team are good about the feeding people. They take care of that themselves. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, they take care of their own expenses. All my people know that. Like, your expenses are yours. The only things that I take care of is I'll generally take care of the transportation gas for myself, for my vehicle, and anybody with me. I bought all the equipment is owned by me, the team.
Wow.
So I take care of all that expense. Most of the other things, like I said, most people pay their own expenses, but like the equipment, travel, things like that, it's generally the ones that I take care of.
Is it expensive, the equipment? Can
Yeah,
you give us an
it can be.
example? Can you give us a rundown of some of the equipment you use and what it's used for?
Okay, yeah, sure. We have we have a lot, but the biggest ones we have, I can start with our cameras. I have an 8-channel Vonic DVR system.
Wow.
So it's a security system basically that we mount it. I have tripods for all the cameras. Obviously, I have 8 big ones. I have 2 small ones just in case we don't have room for the big one. We put it on a windowsill or something like that. It's got all the little tripods it came with. So we've got all the equipment for that. The extra wires we had to buy for it. It came with the cameras in the unit, thankfully. After that, we have the full spectrum camera. Right now, I believe I have 3 night vision cameras.
Really?
Yeah, I have 3. 1 Sony, 1 JVC, and the team has just acquired a Samsung. It's one of my investigators that owns it, but we're going to be getting it out on a few cases here soon. After that, we have my wife's Canon DSLR, a Kodak Coolpix, just a little $50 Walmart, digital camera.
Mm-hmm.
We use those. And for people that think, you need the DSLR, no, the Kodak one works just as well as the big units there. So the cost of a camera doesn't make a difference when it comes to that.
Okay.
After that, we've got multiple EVP recorders. I'd say I probably have 5 now. Looking to get more, obviously, because you never have too many recorders.
What's the difference between capturing something on an actual EVP recorder as opposed to capturing audio on a handy cam or something along those lines?
Not really much, honestly.
Okay.
It'll come through the same. You'll still hear it faintly underneath everything, and if you look at the wave pattern, it'll still show up. It'll still show up in there sometimes. But you need to, with the video, at least you can see that it's nobody in the room that's doing the talking as it happens, right?
So you have that to validate it. Now, do you ever pick up apparitions on the camera?
Well, video evidence is incredibly rare. So
is that right? Huh?
Oh, very rare. Like if you see it maybe once every 10, 15 years. Like in the time I've been doing it, video evidence that I've captured, maybe 4 or 5. And even then, a couple of those were orbs, but we had someone reacting to it at the same time. It was my initial reaction when I see that it's an orb, junk, throw it, get rid of it. There's too many natural causes for it. It's not worth my time. I'd rather have nothing than put up something that is easily or possibly not paranormal.
We see a lot of orbs. There's a lot of orbs being posted these days on the paranormal groups and things along that nature. What is the most natural cause for an orb? Because there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people capturing orbs. When they first started being so prolific, people were saying it's because we have digital technology. Is that not the case anymore?
That does play a part in it. That does play one part in it, the digital technology. Sony put out a statement. I know Alex would be the one to speak with on that. I know the NPS has it up on their site, the statement by Sony explaining how these orbs appear in the photo with the digital technology. But the most common case I've even run across, and it wasn't on digitals, it was even on the film cameras, If you were to buy a disposable, the little film cameras you have to take in and get it developed in a darkroom and all, if you're to use them, you can still catch orbs with that. And generally, what the biggest thing that you're getting is a reflection. The most common cause for it inside a house is dust.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
dust particles in
I've
the
had
air and
people
the light
tell,
reflects off them
yep.
and you snap
And
the
I've had
photo.
people tell me before. I'm sure you've heard this too. Well, mine's green or it's red or it's blue. It's colored. So it's got to be a ghost, right? I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah.
But yeah, those ones there are actually moisture.
Oh,
We'll see
okay.
that outside. One
It's like
good
a
thing that I've
rainbow.
actually seen and done with people just to show them this is I'll take a camera outside with a flash and I'll take a picture out in my backyard when it's snowing or when it's raining.
Hmm.
And you'll be cutting. There aren't that many ghosts running around in my backyard. I can guarantee you that.
That's funny. Okay. So when you get all this collection of tapes, audio, and everything else, you have to go through it in real time? That must be really time consuming.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I have a review team that's put together. There's about four of us that end up going over all the evidence together. It just speeds things up.
Yeah, I guess so. And when you come across the same thing happening at the same part of the timeline, that must validate various things that have taken place as well. Like I'm thinking if you catch something on one audio feed and it lines up perfectly with another audio feed, then you can actually say, yeah, there's something happening there. Now, from what I've understood, it's very hard for ghosts to actually manipulate audio machines and actually try and say something. It takes a lot of their energy. Yet
Mm-hmm.
some are very clear. Um, could you explain why perhaps some are clearer than the other? Like you can actually hear somebody saying something as opposed to just a grunt?
There's many theories on that, but unfortunately, there's only one way to find out. We'd have to basically catch that as an EVP too, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
But
Okay.
the general theory is that some entities are stronger than others, and that's possibly one reason. And another thought is that sometimes it's got to do with the people in the room. Some people they might be able to draw from them, or they might be more sensitive to it. So that is something the entity is able to focus, and that's how it can be caught easier.
Okay. And do you ever get any warnings to stay away from property, things along that nature? And I'm not talking about from the police or neighbors. I'm talking about ghosts that actually inhabit a haunted property.
uh, we do have sometimes, like we've had times where we'll go and you'll walk into a place, and as soon as I'll walk in to do my initial sweep when I first come to the location. I'll go through with the homeowner. If it's close enough, I'll do this before the rest of the team show up. But when I go in, there's times I'll be there and it comes after me. You'll get a heaviness, and it'll be, people say like it's just centered there, and it's just a heaviness that follows us around while I'm there. Other times I've heard people say that when they're talking to me or about my team coming, activity is picked up for some reason. It could just be their subconscious. They're seeing things, they're hearing every little crack and settling of a house. But there is a possibility that just them speaking on it is riling them up.
I guess it's possible. How does one become a researcher? Apparently, MUFON, we had the director of MUFON Facebook on, Karen King, several weeks ago. And there's a whole criteria for people to follow to become an investigator for MUFON. Is this something what you're trying to bring forward with the course that you're putting together?
Well, the course I'm putting together is not necessarily bringing criteria for it, because
Mm.
one of the things with what we do is it's so many unknown variables,
Yeah.
so many things that we don't know about any of this. One of the biggest things is the reason why it may one day, but the biggest problem is trying to prove the consciousness. This is what parapsychologists have the biggest problem with, and why they say at the moment we can't scientifically prove the paranormal, because it's a matter of proving that there's a consciousness. So until we can figure out how to do that, it's always going to remain theory, speculation.
Right. Do you ever
But what
work in tandem with MUFON?
No, I haven't. I actually
Just
haven't had
curious.
any. I've actually never had any cases where it's involved UFOs or anything like that. Although we have heard there have been lights in the sky and things near the hollow, so I might look into that this summer when we go back.
That could be quite interesting, Ashley. You know, because I've heard before too that usually.
As long as go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead. You were going to say
I
something.
was gonna say, as long as we can find a MUFON group that's not afraid to sleep on the site of like massive occult, satanic, dark witchcraft rituals.
Then you'll be cool with it. Well, I'll get you in touch with Karen King. How's that? I don't know. Maybe she knows some people in the area. And Michel Deschamps is a MUFON guy too. Michel
Okay.
Deschamps is from Sudbury, actually. He's been on the show several times. You can find him in the archives, www.nightfrightshow, as well as our guest tonight, John Moore. All his contact information will be there as well, folks. www.nightfrightshow.com.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent, Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
John, you know, you're on the leading edge, the cutting edge of all this stuff all the time. Do the media ever reach out to you as a go-to person?
Not really. I've had a few times where people have contacted me saying, I'm from this show. We'd like to see, we'd like to see you come and talk to us and things like that.
Mhm.
I've spoken to a couple, but that's about all. I've done a few of these internet radio shows like your own here that we're
Sure.
doing now. And I've done a couple of other ones, but the people from the media, like, come. I did have one guy once say, I'd like to have you do a television show, but I honestly don't think he was legit myself.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, just one of those guys. So I think it was a scam myself, but
Could be. Could be. Yeah. Getting back to the warnings now, when does your team, at what point when your team hears the warning, they actually take it seriously?
generally the point when the psychics and everyone else realize, there's something really bad here. When we start having people scratched, people start getting attacked physically, things like that, then we start to worry.
Has that happened to you?
To me, I've been scratched a couple times on cases
Really?
years ago. Years ago, yeah, there were a couple, but some of the time, though, it's hard to say. Like, you can catch yourself in the dark on a nail and something like that. It's hard to say for sure. Yeah, I was scratched by a ghost. I mean, I'm a mechanic. I get scratched all the time in my job, and I'll just be standing I'll be 10 feet away from the car. Next thing I know, I look down, I'm like, oh crap, and I feel it then, I've been scratched. But
Been scratched.
it might have happened 2 minutes ago when I was standing at the car, right? So,
You
you
didn't even
don't
notice
feel
it.
it until you notice it, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay, so you get to the point where you're about to enter a home. Do you ask the people inside the home to leave so you can do your investigation? How does that all take place?
No, I generally actually prefer to have them there,
Why is that?
just for the reason that the entities, if they are actual human entities, it takes them a while to warm up to people. Like, they're just the same as they were in life. People are shy, ghosts can be shy. These people that have been there for 10 years that they are interacting with, maybe it took them 5, 6 years to actually start interacting with them because they were shy and they didn't know them. It took that long. So if they leave, we could be sitting there all night with nothing happening. But if there's a certain individual that sees them the most, that's there the most, that seems to be like that's the one they focus on, I like to have them in the place with us. And from time to time, we'll actually take them out when we do our rounds of the building. We'll bring them with us out in the field to see if we can get anything around them at the same time.
So
Kind of
I
like
think
using them as bait.
that's a nice way to put it. So typically, I would imagine all your investigations take place on a weekend.
Yes.
So you would show up on a Friday night or a Saturday morning?
Whichever time is best for the client. Generally, we'll show up in the early evening hours after supper.
And how late do you stay? Do you stay overnight and monitor things,
As,
or?
as long as we can and are able to. There are some cases we have stayed overnight. The Witch's Hollow, we were able to sleep on site.
Yee.
Other cases, yeah. Other cases, we've stayed until 3, 4 a.m. We've had cases where we wrapped at midnight. Now, we stay as long as we can. It's ultimately the family. What we're doing is we're trying to help them, and we don't want to be an inconvenience to them.
Okay. Now, when you say there's injuries involved, do you take pictures of the injuries as well?
Yep, absolutely,
You
always.
do, eh? You ever thought
Yeah.
about making a documentary?
I've not really, honestly.
No, eh? How come?
No, I've never thought of doing that. It's just I have so much on the go all the time that I've just
Okay,
never put any thought into that. I
okay.
mean, I'd be open to the idea, obviously, but I've just never put any true thought into it, doing it myself. I have so much going on with all the cases and consulting with others through Haunted North America that I don't have time to oversee something like that.
I get you. I get you. Is there any plans for you to return to the Kingston area and do something?
Yeah, we do actually plan to return there. Four of my guys, I have a satellite team in the Kingston area, so I do have guys down there working and looking at locations for us. We're looking to get down into a few locations down there.
What are some of the reports that have come across your desk from Kingston, just to entice the folks
Um,
that are listening?
well, the best ones for me are Skeleton Park. That one still gets me. I would love to go down and check that place out because I hear so many things
Yeah.
about that area.
Now, I should tell folks,
Um,
Skeleton Park, for those of you that are not from the Kingston area, is virtually an old graveyard with the headstones removed. The bodies are still there. They've turned it into a park, and every now and then somebody will find a piece of a bone somewhere. Sorry to interrupt you, John.
that's no problem.
What are the other hot spots in Kingston you'd like to check out?
The other one is that walkway. You'll know where I'm talking about, near Shea Piggy.
Oh
You have
yes,
that little walkway in the back, and
there
the
was a
ghost
little
of
murder there. Yeah. Now picture London, England, folks, with the mist, the whole 9 yards, and this little tiny walkway. Basically, it was a place for the horses to walk through to a shed, if you will. Now of course, they've renovated everything 200 years later, and it's a wonderful restaurant. But a young lady was murdered in this little walkway, and of course, it's covered and everything, and there's lots and lots of stories of this young lady being seen there on a constant basis, on a consistent basis, I should say.
yeah.
So it's a pretty spooky place, John. Kingston.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like those. And my favorite one are the ones that I'm trying to make contact with right now are the three haunted bed and breakfasts you guys have down there.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be
Yeah,
really cool,
there's
especially if they feed you in the morning. And I don't mean the ghosts.
exactly. Yeah.
We're going to have to start to wrap up, folks. I just want to thank John Moore for joining us. Once again, he is Director of Demonic Investigation for Haunted North America Network. He also runs and operates Ottawa Paranormal Research and Investigation, www.nightfrightshow.com. Click on tonight's guest's contact information. We'll take you right to his website. He's got a fabulous Facebook page as well, the Haunted North America Network. Something like 10,000 group members. It's phenomenal, folks. You got to check it out, and they post all the time. I'm Brent Holland from Night Fright. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
You're listening to Night Fright and your host, Brent Holland. The time is now. Your voice on the air for paranormal and conspiracy.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now, nightfrightshow.com.